Hey there everyone, it's Nina. Thanks for joining me today for a new video. I have 4 different ideas to share with you today, all using new products from Simon Says Stamps Limited Edition Easter 2022 card kit. So inside of this kit are so many fun products that you can use to make some spring and Easter themed projects. So I'm going to walk you through the 4 things that I made using the kit contents, and hopefully it will inspire you to create some sweet, colorful cards with a variety of techniques, because we're going to cover quite a few different things today. Starting off first, I'm going to take some of the Therm card fronts that are included in the kit. These are really cool because these are foilable. So if you have the Deco foil that's included in the kit, as well as any other foils from Therm, they will work perfectly for this technique that I'm about to share. So I'm going to start first with the Kraft sheet that I have, as well as some of the gold foil that's included in your kit. I'm going to put it inside of a piece of parchment paper along with another sheet of white cardstock just to act as a shim. And then I'll just run this through my laminator. The parchment paper is going to be a carrier for this entire piece. It's going to help keep everything contained as it's foiling. And depending on your machine, you may not need a shim or you may need more than one shim. It all depends. Every machine can be a little bit different. But check out how easy that was. So that gold foil got transferred onto the black areas of our design. So that was the bunnies, and now I'm going to take the Easter eggs. And this happens to be some Mystic Rainbow foil from Therm that I had in my stash. This is actually a newer foil from them. I'm going to cut this down so it's about the size of the card front here. I'll put that in with my sheet of white cardstock to act as a shim, and I'll run this through the parchment paper inside of my laminator. And this is a mini Mink machine, but any laminator that can be used on a hot setting will be able to transfer your foil onto your project. So check out how we have this fun rainbow design. It's really sweet. And the best part is that you can actually use that negative that was left behind. You don't have to throw that out. You can use that to make another card. So I'm going to get 2 cards out of this foiled background, which is really great. I just put some double-sided adhesive onto a piece of white cardstock, and then I'll lay my leftover foil into that adhesive so that way it'll stick and hold down really nicely. I'll burnish out any bubbles that might be remaining, and that's going to give me another beautiful background that I can use for another card. So I made 2 cards, like I said, out of this egg pattern. So let's talk about those. I have one of them here. This one is using the card front where we foiled the beautiful rainbow foil on top of that toner printed background. So after foiling, I brought in the Some Bunny Loves You stamp set that's included in the kit. And I'm going to use Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks to stamp this in an ombre of colors. I was heavily inspired by the colors in the foil, so I used those as a guide, starting off with Cadet in the middle. I brushed out the edges of that Cadet stamping, so that way it'll feather nicely into the next color, which is going to be along the bottom, and this happens to be Tropic. So that's going to blend nicely with Cadet along the bottom, and along the top we're going to use Taffy. And again, I made sure to use my blending brush, this is a Simon Says Stamp small blending brush, to feather that ink in towards Cadet. So now we have this really nice ombre of color, and that's going to create a beautiful sentiment that'll pair up nicely with that foil. And it'll also really go nicely with the ombre of colors that are in the foil too. The coordinating die for this stamp does come with your kit, so I used that to go ahead and cut out this greeting. Check out how cool that looks. I used a piece of the vellum that's included in the kit to mat behind my bunny greeting, and I pulled out a pom-pom from my stash to go ahead and tuck that underneath the bunny ears. I think that just added a nice whimsical touch to this card. So that was card number 1. Card number 2 is a fun rainbow shaker card. So we had that beautiful vibrant background that got left over from the foiling we did for the first card. So I decided after attaching that onto the white cardstock, I would cover the back side of this paper with some red line tape. And I'm adding that tape all the way around the edges of the paper, keeping it up close to that edge. That's because I want to turn this panel into an edge-to-edge shaker card. I'm going to go ahead and remove the release paper on the back side of my adhesive on 3 sides of the paper, leaving one of the release papers completely intact for now. Then using a piece of plastic from some stamped packaging that I cut down to be slightly larger than this panel, I'm going to fold that around the edges of my background, and that's going to lay into the adhesive and form a pocket that this little background is going to be surrounded by. That opening across the top there, where we did not lay over that plastic into the adhesive yet, that's going to be where we're going to funnel in some sequins that I had from my stash, and we're going to fill up this pocket so it has a nice fun shaker element. So I'll get those sequins moving, and you can see how cool this looks. I'm going to make this card very simple, and I'm going to pull out some of the stickers that are included in the card kit, and I'll also add a small sentiment that I stamped and embossed onto some slate gray cardstock to add a secondary greeting to this card. I think it's really sweet, and it's a fun way to be able to use the leftover foil from this gorgeous egg design. Okay, so we made 2 cards already with some foiling. Now remember, we did the gold foiling on that Kraft card front. So this is the bunny's background, and after foiling it with the gold foil, I went ahead and picked out one of the cute little images that's included in the pattern paper. I fussy cut this bunny with his little butt sticking up from the top of a flower pot, and I fussy cut him out so that way I could attach him down onto this card. I want to keep this card simple because the foiling is so gorgeous. I don't want to distract from that. So I pulled out some of the ribbon that's included in your kit, and I'm going to fashion a little bow, and that's going to get adhered onto my card along with a strip of ribbon that's going to go across the front of the card. I added some red line tape to the back side of this ribbon. That's one of the great things about red line tape is that it's not just for paper. So it holds really well to all sorts of materials. So it's a great adhesive for adhering things, including fabric and ribbon. So I just wrapped that ribbon around my card panel here, and then eventually I'll glue the bow on top. It makes it a little easier to just wrap that little bit of ribbon around the card and then add the bow later. It's a little bit more simpler. I used some hot glue to attach the little cottontail that I had from my stash on top of the bunny, and then the hot glue also adhered that cute bow next to the sentiment. My sentiment is from the card kit. It's in the large 6x8 Easter Joy stamp set that's included. It's a beautiful stamp set with some gorgeous imagery. I didn't get to color any of the imagery from that stamp set, but I'm looking forward to doing so because it's really gorgeous. Okay, now speaking of coloring, I did want to color this Easter basket. I actually designed the Easter basket, which includes the cute little egg and chick that's part of this entire set, and you get this entire die set in your kit too. I'm telling you, if you haven't checked it out, you really should because it's adorable. Okay, so back to the card I'm making. I have the Easter basket die here, and I'm going to cut it from some watercolor paper. That's because I decided I wanted to watercolor the Easter basket and also the elements. So after cutting, I went ahead and took some watercolors. These happen to be a mix of Daniel Smith watercolors, and I'm just going to create a little bit of a dry brush effect. It's not a true dry brush because I do add some water here and there to help move some of the color, but I'm using very minimal water. And so what that's doing is it's creating a very textured watercoloring to this Easter basket, which is what I wanted. I wanted to kind of mimic the look and texture of a real basket on this, and I thought this was a perfect way to do so. So after coloring in the basket, then I also went ahead and colored in this cute little chick that I had illustrated for this die set. I used some yellow and just colored his body. Then I also brought in a little bit of orange to add to his beak. When I had designed this die, I tried to make sure to include some great detail features, including a nice little area for his wings and a little bit of a belly effect. And there's even a little bit of a fur texture coming off the edges of this cute little chickie. So I loved how he turned out, and he also colored beautifully. You could also have colored him with inks or Copic markers, or even cut him out with pattern paper. Now I also colored the eggs too in that same fashion, trying to create some texture here. I didn't want them to be perfectly colored. So I mixed up some different colors and I created some nice assortments of eggs. Some of the eggs I did add a bit of ink blending to them with some Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink and this egg stencil. Now this is actually a two-part stencil. You're only seeing one of the pieces here. This is actually the decorative layer of the stencil. However, the stencil does include some standard egg shapes, which is really fun. And you can layer up this detail layer with those eggs to create some really fun effects. That's what I'm doing here. I'm using the icicle paste that's included in the kit and just adding some details to my eggs. This will dry clear, but it'll have a nice little sparkle to it, and it also crackles too, so it gives you some nice texture on the eggs without it being too distracting. I loved the pattern papers in this kit so much, I wanted to use them as the background. So what I did was I added a few little greenery pieces to my Easter basket to help kind of fill things in, and I also was kind of inspired by those vertical stems and leaves on the pattern paper. So that's kind of the direction I was going here with this Easter basket. I'm also going to stamp a sentiment for this card using a sentiment from the Easter Joy stamp set that's included in the kit, and I just stamped that with embossing ink and white embossed that onto black cardstock. Now, you see Oscar over there on the side? Well, he was quite fascinated with the birds that were outside my window as I was creating, until I got to this point. Then he realized I had ribbon, which, if you have cats, they probably get into your ribbon stash quite frequently. Mine love to. They know exactly where it is, and they get all excited when I pull ribbon out. So as you can see, Oscar was quite happy that I had a piece here on my desk. I had to save the card before he ended up sending that flying off the desk. And he just had so much fun. He was thrilled that there was some ribbon around for him to play with. So after Oscar had his fun, now I'm going to go ahead and finish up this card. So I pulled out my hot glue gun again, and this time I'm just going to use that to attach my cute little bow on the top of my Easter basket. And as you can see, I adhered a bunch of the eggs and also the greeting onto the card too. This is actually a 5x7 card. This is not an A2, so you can see that the basket fills up a card beautifully, including a 5x7, which I think is a fun size to work with. I haven't really done too many 5x7 cards, but I really enjoyed making this one, and I'm really happy with how the card turned out. Well, that was my 4 different ideas that I had to share with you all using the Simon Says Stamp Limited Edition Easter Kit. Now, if you don't have the Easter Kit, definitely see if you can incorporate any of the ideas that I've shared today into your crafting projects. Maybe you have some different elements that you could utilize from your stash to create something similar. I hope you do, because even if you don't have these exact products, you can use these ideas for other things. So I hope that you were inspired. If you did want to check out the kit, I do have it linked below in the video description or over at my blog for you to check out, as well as more information about all the products that I used today to create these cards. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed. I can't wait to come back and share more with you all. But until I get to see you again, I hope everyone has a very wonderful day. Bye!